So I'm a 33-year-old guy, and for the last 12 years, I've had zero contact with my dad's side of the family. This all started when my dad remarried, a big shift that happened when I was just about 10. Back then, my parents split because, well, they just weren't in love anymore. Even though I get it now, as a kid, it really shook me up. I felt a mix of shock and heartbreak, which led me to act out a lot. We even tried family counseling to smooth things out, but it mostly felt like only my mom was trying to get me. My dad? He was more about just dealing with things as they come, which made me feel pretty distant from him. I mostly lived with my mom and only stayed with my dad for short periods. Things took a harder turn when I was 15. My mom tragically passed away in an accident, and I had no choice but to move in with my dad full time. Honestly, those were some of the darkest days for me. It seemed like I was the only one who really missed her. My dad had been with his girlfriend, Emily, who's now 48, for a few years by then. They got engaged right around the time my mom died, which made things even tougher for me. It felt like my dad was moving on too fast, focusing on his new life with Emily and not showing any real sadness about losing mom. That left me feeling pretty alone during my teenage years. Living with Emily was no picnic either. She jumped right into trying to be the new mom in the house, setting rules and expecting me to fall in line. But how could someone just step in and act like they could replace my mom so quickly? It just didn't sit right with me. To make things even more complicated, Emily had a son, Mike, who's now 31. She was always trying to give him the upper hand, whether it was a better position on the football team or a bigger role in the school play. Sure, Mike wasn't totally cool with how his mom favored him. He'd even call her out on it. But he still enjoyed the perks of her efforts. My teen years were a mess of emotions, dealing with the loss of my mom, a dad who wouldn't stand up for me against Emily, and a stepbrother who was nice but kind of awkward around me. I decided early on that I just needed to keep my head down, get through college, and then I could start my own life on my terms. I ended up going to USC, which was great because it was still in my home state, and to save money, I stayed at home. Both my dad and Emily were cool with it, as long as I pitched in a bit for rent and groceries. It wasn't like I was freeloading. I was doing my part to help out while focusing on my studies. However, back then, I was completely blindsided by my dad, sitting me down one day and saying, "Son, we had agreed that you would stay with us during your college years, but something has come up. Emily and I feel like you're distracting Mike with your activities and friends that you bring over. And because of that, we need to come to a new agreement." When I heard this from him, I got really confused, not knowing the context. I thought he might have been referring to my friends that came over to play games on my WY every now and then. Or perhaps I was being too loud that night with music. I had no idea. And I asked him, "What do you mean, Dad? My friend's being a bad influence on Mike. I swear we haven't taught him anything wrong. And most of the time we stay out of each other's way, right?" He replied, "Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about, OP. I think that you and I both know that Mike has strong feelings for Evelyn. What we were thinking is maybe you could break up with her to keep peace in the family. I mean, we don't think that a girl should mean more than your brother's well-being, right?" I laughed out loud when I heard this. It was by far the dumbest thing I had ever heard in my life. Still chuckling, I went, "Sure, Dad. Why don't I break up an amazing relationship? Because your kid doesn't know how to take no for an answer. I've already told him tons of times that he makes Evelyn uncomfortable, and I barely bring her over anymore. What is the problem anyways?" I knew he was beating around the bush, but I was starting to realize that Mike had gone all gung-ho with a "if I can't have a nobody can" attitude. And Emily had probably asked Dad to talk to me about it to appease her son and also make sure he doesn't waste any more time over this girl. I have no clue how they expected me to roll over on this, though. It blew up into a huge fight, and I ended up choosing to stick with Evelyn and move out of the house. I packed my bags one day and left, changing my cell number in the process to I crashed at a friend's place for a few days and eventually moved in with my girlfriend. Thankfully, I was in college on scholarship, and my main struggles came from paying for rent and utilities. But I hustled and work nights to make it happen. At this point, all bridges had been burned with my family, and the only people I consider family currently are a few relatives on my mom's side. It's been 12 years since then, and guess what? Evelyn and I got married, and both of us are quite comfortable in our jobs and lives. In fact, we bought our first house and are trying for a baby. I genuinely think leaving my toxic family behind was the best decision I made. However, a couple of days ago, someone showed up at my doorstep, and that made me spiral and think back to my past a little. Mike somehow found out where I lived and came over to visit one day saying that he needs to talk to me. I was too shocked to really react and silently let him in after he made himself comfortable. We caught up a little, although he already knew the general gist of my life because he had apparently found out through social media. Then he told me the real reason he was here. He explained a lot of things about his infatuation with Evelyn, including his mom's involvement. However, he also added that he never wanted me to move out of the house, and that was something that Emily had devised all on her own. He said that his stepdad, a mom, seemed almost glad that I was gone, and the house became really cold and weird after that for him. The three of them ended up moving out of state a few months after I left, something which I wasn't aware of, and Mike didn't know how to reach out to me back then. In all this time, he had been feeling guilty for the way I had laughed and had gotten over his infatuation with Evelyn. Surprise? Surprise. But due to his shitty mental state, had ended up mixing with the wrong crowd in college and ended up dropping out. The situation at home was terrible as well, and his mother was losing her mind over his lack of drive and success, without ever really bothering to find out why he was feeling so depressed. This eventually drove him to leave the house after 10 years back, and he's been wandering the states working random odd jobs and hitchhiking. He came to me to ask if I wouldn't help him out by settling in this town, perhaps by helping him get a foot in the door at the place I work at. For someone with no degree and no qualifications, this would be tough, and I made that clear. But Mike said that I owe him this for abandoning him without toxic family. He claims that even though we were distant, we were still brothers. He left about an hour back. As I'm writing this post and I'm torn, I don't think I owe him any obligation. But it's terrible to see him like this. I spoke to Evelyn about it and she would prefer staying. No contact with all members of my family, including Mike, but feels like we should help him out in some way, at least. Would I be the a-hole if I don't continue interacting with my stepbrother? Update 1. So after reading through all of your comments and thinking about this whole situation with Mike, I've kind of made up my mind on what to do next. I think the best plan right now is to help Mike get started on his own a bit. I'm going to give him some cash to cover a cheap apartment for a few months. That way he has a place to stay and some time to figure things out without stressing about where he's going to sleep each night. Plus, it's kind of like pushing him a little to stand on his own feet, because I'm also going to tell him he needs to start looking for a job on his own. It's time for him to take some responsibility, you know? I'm not really sure if Mike and I will ever have that close, brotherly bond. I mean, things have been pretty complicated between us, and maybe they always will be. But you guys made some really good points in your comments. I don't actually owe him anything when it comes to sorting out his own feelings and the stuff he's going through. It might sound a bit tough, but it's the truth. I did what I had to do for my own peace of mind and my own life. Giving him some help now is just me trying to be fair and give him a chance to get on his feet. So yeah, that's the plan. Help him out a little, but also make it clear that he's got to start pulling his own weight. Hopefully this helps him get started on a new chapter, and who knows? Maybe things between us will get better over time. But for now, I'm just focusing on doing the right thing without getting too caught up in all the emotional drama. Thanks for all your advice. It really helped me see things clearer. Update 2. Hey everyone, it's been a few months since I last filled you in on what's been going on with Mike and me. Well, a few months have passed, and I gotta say, Mike's really started to find his groove here in town. It's like he's a whole new person compared to who he was before. He's landed a job as a junior manager over at the local Walmart, which is pretty cool for him. The bit of money we gave him to help him get started has really done wonders. He's been using it wisely, and now he's even going to night school to get a degree. I'm really proud of him for taking these steps. It's kind of awesome to see him turning his life around and getting serious about his future. And honestly, watching his progress kind of makes me want to be more involved in his life, maybe help him out more or just be there for him. But there's still this one thing that's kind of bugging me. Even with all the positive changes, Mike still acts like I owe him something because I moved out earlier and he felt left on his own. Sometimes he even brings it up in a way that makes me feel guilty about the decisions I made. It's a bit frustrating because, I was just doing what I thought was best for me at the time. I talked to some of my relatives about this whole situation, and they think I should just face it head on and have a real talk with Mike about all these feelings. They think a good, honest confrontation might clear the air. I'm not usually the confrontational type, but maybe they're right. It might help get rid of this weird tension and help us move on, you know? So that's where I'm at right now. Thinking about sitting down with Mike, laying it all out, and hopefully sorting things out so we can both feel good about our relationship. It's not easy, but hey, that's family for you, right? Always a bit of drama, but also a lot of opportunities to grow closer if you handle things right. Thanks for sticking with me through this update, and I'll be sure to let you know how the talk goes. Update 3. I finally had that talk with Mike. It was about time I let him know why I think it's not cool for him to expect stuff from me just because of our past. But even though I had to lay down some hard truths, I've got to say, I really do think he's turned into a decent guy. He's changed a lot, and he definitely deserves some respect and, yeah, even some love from me. The chat was a bit intense, and it took Mike a bit to really get the whole picture. You know, understanding the subtle stuff, like why it's not okay to hold on to those old expectations. But he got there in the end. And you know what? He actually apologized. He said he was sorry for putting that unfair burden on me, and he even thanked me for all the help I've given him. That felt pretty good, not gonna lie. And there's more good news. Evelyn, yeah, she's had her issues with Mike too, especially because of some weird vibes he gave off in the past. Well, she's also coming around. Mike went to her, all on his own, and apologized privately for his past behavior. That took guts, and I really respect him for that. Evelyn softened up to him a lot since then, and it looks like things are finally starting to smooth out. So, it looks like Mike's going to be welcome in our house from now on. It's a big step, and I'm kind of hopeful about where things are heading with him. As for his mom and my dad, that's a whole different story. Let's just say Mike and I are on the same page there. We both can't stand them, and that's putting it mildly. So yeah, they're not exactly on our favorite people list, and I doubt that's going to change anytime soon, lol. Anyway, that's the update for now. It's been a roller coaster, but it feels like things are moving in a better direction. Thanks for all the support and advice. It's really helped me handle this whole situation. I'll keep you all posted on how things go from here. Update 4. Just when I thought things with Mike were starting to smooth over, life decided to throw another complication our way. So yesterday was just another typical day at work for me. Nothing out of the ordinary, just the usual hustle. Midway through the afternoon, my phone rings, and it's Evelyn sounding more upset than I've heard in a long while. She tells me Mike came over to our house unexpectedly. Now we had an understanding with Mike that he needs to let us know beforehand if he wants to drop by. Common courtesy, right? But there he was, showing up without a heads up. Here's where it gets complicated. Mike didn't just come over for a casual visit to catch up or something lighthearted. After a bit of uneasy chit-chat, he starts into this intense confession. Turns out he's still got feelings for Evelyn. Yes, that's right. After everything that's gone down, this guy hasn't let go of his old crush. But that's not all. He goes on to ask Evelyn if she would consider giving him a chance, basically suggesting they could be something more. Evelyn, being the rock star that she is, shut that down immediately. She told him straight that it wasn't happening, that she was fully committed to our marriage, and that his feelings were completely inappropriate. But Mike didn't take the rejection well at all. He started arguing, getting visibly agitated, and even stepped towards her in a way that was way out of line. Thankfully, Evelyn managed to handle the situation and kicked him out before things could escalate. She even had the foresight to record the whole ordeal on her phone. When I heard about this, I left work right then and there, furious and ready to confront Mike. But by the time I got home, he had already left. I was absolutely livid, unable to think straight. After all the discussions, the efforts to rebuild some sort of trust and brotherly bond, it felt like we had just taken a massive step backward. Evelyn was understandably shaken by the ordeal, and I was left scrambling, trying to make sense of Mike's actions and figure out what our next move should be. Now I'm stuck wondering how to handle this whole mess. Do I confront Mike directly? Should we just cut ties completely this time? It seems like every attempt at mending our relationship ends up being undermined by another issue. And now, there's the added problem of his inappropriate behavior towards my wife. The whole situation is a mess, and honestly, I'm struggling to see a clear path forward. So, that's the update. It's yet another twist in the saga that's my relationship with my stepbrother. If anyone has any advice or has been through something similar, I'd really appreciate hearing your thoughts because this is just more than I ever anticipated dealing with. Update 5. After the last incident with Mike, where he unexpectedly showed up at our house and confessed his feelings for Evelyn, which quickly escalated into a confrontational and uncomfortable situation, my initial reaction was anger. I mean, boiling point, seeing red type of anger. It was a lot to process, and in those first few hours, all I could think about was finding Mike and confronting him face to face, maybe even physically. I was that upset. I spent the better part of that evening driving around town, checking some of the usual spots I thought he might show up at, but Mike was nowhere to be found. It was like he had dropped off the face of the earth right after stirring up this storm in our lives. The more I couldn't find him, the more my frustration grew. It felt like he had just thrown a grenade into our lives and skipped town before the fallout. After several hours of this fruitless search, I came home to Evelyn. Seeing her so shaken up by what had happened and discussing it further helped snap me back to reality. I realized that trying to handle this through a physical confrontation wouldn't solve anything and could actually make things worse. Evelyn, ever the voice of reason, suggested we take a more constructive approach. We talked it through and agreed that the best course of action was to use the legal system to ensure our safety and set a firm boundary that Mike couldn't cross. She reminded me that we had the entire incident recorded on her phone, which captured not just his inappropriate confession, but also his aggressive behavior afterward. The next morning, with a clearer head and a heavy heart, I went to the police station to file a report. It was a tough decision, fraught with mixed emotions. On one hand, Mike was, at one point, someone I considered family, albeit a complicated and strained relationship. On the other hand, his actions had crossed a line that couldn't be ignored. I handed over Evelyn's recording to the police, and they watched it intently, taking notes. The officers were quite supportive. They understood the severity of the situation and began the process to look into it right away. They mentioned that this evidence could potentially lead to a restraining order, depending on how things unfolded legally. Filing the police report felt like a necessary step towards reclaiming some sense of security, but it didn't come without its emotional toll. It marked a definitive end to any lingering hopes I might have had about reconciling with Mike. As I left the police station, there was a part of me that felt relieved. Relieved that we were taking concrete steps to protect ourselves and that the law was on our side. But there was also a profound sense of sadness, a recognition that the familial bond I once hoped to salvage was now beyond repair. The drive back home was a quiet one, with me just trying to process all the feelings swirling inside. Back at home, Evelyn and I had a long talk about everything that had happened. We discussed our next steps and how we would handle things moving forward. It was clear that our relationship with Mike had reached a point where the only interactions, if any, would be through legal channels. We were both on the same page about wanting no further contact with him unless absolutely necessary. The reality of cutting someone out of your life so completely, especially someone who was once considered family, is a stark and harsh one. Yet, for our own well-being, it felt like the only viable option left. These past few days since filing the report have been a bit of a waiting game. We're waiting to see how the legal process pans out, waiting to hear back from the police, and just generally waiting for some semblance of normalcy to return to our lives. This entire ordeal has taken a significant toll on both of us. There are moments of anger, moments of profound disappointment, and moments where the whole weight of this situation just feels overwhelming. Despite the turmoil, there have been some small silver linings. Evelyn and I have found a renewed strength in our relationship through dealing with this together. It's reminded us of the importance of supporting one another and standing united in the face of challenges. We've also been incredibly grateful for the support from friends and a few family members who are in the know about the situation. Their words of encouragement and offers of help have been a small beacon of light in what has otherwise been a very dark period. Update 6. After my last update, where I shared about filing a report against Mike following his unexpected and aggressive behavior, things progressed more rapidly than I expected. The police were quite efficient once they had all the evidence, including the recording from Evelyn's phone. They managed to track down Mike, and based on what had transpired, along with their own investigations, he was arrested. This wasn't an outcome I had ever hoped for, but his actions left us with no other choice, and part of me felt relieved that there was a measure of safety in knowing he couldn't just show up at our doorstep again. But barely had I started to process this, when another unexpected twist came our way. My phone rang one evening, and the display showed a name I hadn't seen in over a decade: my dad. The sight of his name stirred up a whirlpool of emotions, from old anger to a flicker of hopeful curiosity, wondering why, after all these years, he decided to call. I answered the call, a decision driven partly by those flickering hopes that maybe, just maybe, this could be a step towards some reconciliation or understanding. But those hopes were quickly dashed the moment I heard the tone of his and Emily's voices. There was no warmth or regret for the years of silence, no gentle easing into conversation. Instead, they dove straight into the issue at hand, as if the past 12 years of distance and silence had evaporated into thin air. They immediately launched into a tirade about how ridiculous it was for me to press charges against Mike, demanding that I drop them. Their words were forceful, insistent, as if they had any right to dictate my actions after everything that had happened. And as if that wasn't enough, they threw in an accusation against Evelyn, claiming she had somehow set Mike up, that she had manipulated the situation to make him look worse than he was. The accusation was not only baseless, but also deeply insulting. The shock of their audacity made my blood boil. But more than that, it brought back all the reasons why I had distanced myself from them in the first place. Here they were, after a 12-year hiatus, still trying to control and manipulate, still expecting me to bend to their will without question. It was as though they expected me to just fall back in line, like the old days when I didn't know any better than to follow their lead. I managed to keep my voice steady, though inside, I was a tumult of anger and disappointment. "So now you want to talk," I said, my words laced with disbelief and a cold anger. I didn't wait for their response. I told them never to contact me again, and ended the call before they could say another word. Hanging up on them felt like closing a door, a heavy, ironclad door, on a part of my life that had long caused me more pain than peace. It was a definitive move, one that said no more to manipulation, to emotional blackmail, and to relationships that brought more hurt than healing. Evelyn was right beside me, her presence a steady comfort. We talked it through, and she agreed wholeheartedly that we didn't need that kind of negativity in our lives, that our well-being and our peace were too important to compromise. The aftermath of that call left me with a lot to think about. I spent long hours into the night, reflecting on what family means, on the bonds we choose to keep, and those we choose to sever. It's clear to me now more than ever that family isn't just about blood relations, it's about who stands by you, who supports you, and who respects your choices. It's about the people who are there for you in your darkest hours, who lend strength when you're weak, and who celebrate with you in your happiest moments. In the days since, as we wait to see how the legal proceedings against Mike unfold, I found a certain clarity. It's a clarity that comes from making tough decisions that prioritize our safety and mental health. It's not been easy, and there are moments when the weight of everything feels overwhelming. But there's also a sense of rightness in knowing we are taking steps to protect ourselves and to build a life surrounded by people who genuinely care. The support from friends and the few family members who have stood by us has been invaluable. Their words of encouragement and their presence, whether physical or through messages and calls, have helped buoy my spirits. It's reminded me that while we may have had to close the door on certain relationships, we've also opened the door to others, to people who have shown us what true family looks like. Update 7. Hey everyone, I've got quite the mix of updates to share with you today, and I'm starting with some really wonderful news amidst all the challenges we've been facing. Evelyn and I are expecting a baby. Finding out we're going to be parents has brought a bright new dimension of joy and anticipation into our lives that's hard to fully put into words. It's a profound moment for both of us, filled with hopes and dreams about the future we're going to provide for our child. This joyous news comes as a beacon of light, especially considering the tumultuous period we've been going through. It's like a promise of renewal and positivity when we've been surrounded by so much negativity. Planning for the arrival of our baby has given us a beautiful focus, a project filled with love and excitement, from discussing potential names to imagining what our little one will look like and planning the nursery. On the other end of the spectrum, we're still dealing with the ongoing legal situation involving Mike. The process has been slow and often draining. We recently met with our lawyer, who provided an update on what to expect going forward. Based on the evidence and charges, Mike could be facing between 5 to 7 years in prison. It's a heavy reality, one that carries a mix of emotions for us. Despite everything that has happened, there's no joy in seeing someone I once considered family facing such a harsh reality. It brings with it a somber reflection on how things escalated to this point and the series of choices that led us here. Throughout this legal maze, our focus has been on maintaining our integrity and ensuring our safety. We've been attending hearings and staying in close contact with our legal team to stay informed of every development. The gravity of the legal proceedings is a stark contrast to the lightness and joy we feel when focusing on our expected child. This duality of experiences has been a strange journey, preparing for a new life while simultaneously dealing with aspects of my past that I wish could have turned out differently. Evelyn has been incredible through it all. Her strength and resilience have buoyed me on the harder days, and her excitement about our baby is infectious. We've been spending a lot of time talking about how we want to raise our child. Values like kindness, understanding, and strength are at the forefront of these discussions. We want to create a nurturing environment, one that is vastly different from the tumult and strife that have characterized some of my familial relationships. As we prepare for our new arrival, we've also been consciously deciding to keep our distance from toxic relationships. The clarity that comes with expecting a child has reinforced our resolve to protect our family's peace. We've been rearranging our home, setting up a nursery, and reading all sorts of parenting books, each activity strengthening the bond between us and reinforcing the excitement for our family's future. Reflecting on family dynamics, I've come to appreciate even more the support from friends and the few family members who've been there for us. Their support has been a consistent reminder that family isn't just about blood relations, it's about who you choose to have in your life, who supports you, and who shares in your values. This network of chosen family has been instrumental in keeping us grounded and focused on what truly matters. Looking ahead, the arrival of our child feels like a new chapter, one where we can focus on creating positive memories and building a legacy of love and respect. It's a chance for us to turn the page on past difficulties and look forward to the joys of parenthood. Despite the ongoing legal situation with Mike, which we will continue to handle with the seriousness it deserves, we are increasingly looking forward to the future with optimism. Balancing the preparation for our baby with the legal procedures has not been easy. There are days when the stress seems overwhelming, when the slow pace of legal proceedings feels frustratingly at odds with the rapid preparations for our new arrival. Yet these challenges have also brought us closer together, solidifying our partnership and our commitment to our family's well-being. I'm deeply grateful for the community of friends, both online and in real life, who have offered words of encouragement and support through these times. Sharing this journey with you has provided not just a cathartic outlet for me, but has also offered perspectives and advice that have been invaluable. As we move forward, I'll continue to update you all on both the joyous and challenging aspects of our life. Your engagement and support have been pillars of strength for us, and I look forward to sharing more about our journey into parenthood and beyond. Here's to hoping that the next updates will be filled with more joy as we get closer to welcoming our new family member into the world. Thank you all for sticking with us through thick and thin. Your encouragement and insights have been bright spots in an often difficult journey. Last update. Firstly, the most wonderful news. Evelyn and I welcomed our beautiful baby into the world. The arrival of our child has been nothing short of miraculous, transforming our lives in ways we never could have imagined. Every cry, every smile, reaffirms our decision to focus on building a nurturing and loving environment away from past negativity. Seeing Evelyn embrace motherhood with such grace and love has only deepened my admiration and love for her. She's been incredible, and watching her with our baby makes every challenging moment we've endured together worth it. In parallel to the joy of new parenthood, the conclusion of Mike's trial has also been a significant part of our recent lives. After what felt like an eternity of hearings and waiting, the court handed down a sentence of 6 years. It's a substantial period that reflects the severity of his actions. On the day of the sentencing, I managed to have a brief conversation with Mike. I expressed my hope that he uses this time to genuinely reflect and perhaps find a new direction for his life. The exchange was brief and heavy with unspoken emotions: regret for the paths taken, sorrow for the familial bonds broken, and a somber acceptance of the reality we now face. This closure, though necessary, wasn't celebrated. It felt more like an acknowledgement that some chapters in our lives had to be closed, not with joy, but with a quiet resignation to protect our future and focus on the positives that we can control. It also marked a definitive end to any remnants of hope for reconciliation with Mike or my father and Emily. Their absence in all recent events only cemented our resolve that distancing ourselves was the right choice. Reflecting on this, the concept of family has profoundly shifted for me. I've learned that family isn't always defined by blood, but by the bonds you choose to nurture and the commitment to support each other through life's trials and celebrations. Evelyn and I have felt this shift acutely, deciding to invest our energies into relationships that bring positivity and growth, both for ourselves and for our child. Our baby's future is what drives us now. We've been imagining all the firsts we're going to experience: first steps, first words, first birthdays. We're planning the kind of upbringing we want our child to have, emphasizing kindness, respect, understanding, and above all, love. We hope to instill values that encourage our child to embrace diversity, seek understanding, and act with compassion towards others. As we adjust to our new roles as parents, our home has become a sanctuary filled with love and laughter, even amidst the sleepless nights and the steep learning curve that parenthood inevitably brings. We've transformed one of the rooms into a vibrant nursery, picking out colors and themes that we hope will inspire creativity and happiness in our child. Each choice, from the books on the shelf to the toys in the crib, has been made with so much thought and anticipation. Moreover, our discussions often turn towards how we will discuss our past with our child when the time comes. We agree that honesty, framed in a way that is age-appropriate and constructive, will be our guiding principle. We want our child to learn from our experiences, to understand the complexities of human relationships, and to know that while life can sometimes be challenging, there is always a path toward healing and happiness. During this transitional time, the support from our community, both locally and online, has been incredibly uplifting. Your comments, stories, and words of advice have not only helped us navigate the tougher times, but have also celebrated our victories with us. This virtual diary has become more than just a series of posts. It's been a shared journey that has connected us with so many wonderful people. Looking forward, while I may not update this specific thread anymore, the journey certainly doesn't end here. We're just beginning this incredible adventure of raising our child, discovering the world anew through their eyes. I hope to continue sharing parts of our life in other ways, perhaps focusing more on the joys and challenges of parenting and less on the conflicts of the past. In closing this chapter, I want to express my deepest thanks to all of you. You've been with us through some of the most difficult and the most beautiful moments of our lives. Your engagement has not just been a source of comfort, it's been a beacon of hope, reminding us of the goodness and support that exists in the world. Here's to new beginnings, to the adventures that await, and to all of you. Thank you for being a part of our journey. Your support has meant the world to us, and we look forward to sharing the next chapters of our lives with you, filled with as much hope and happiness as we feel now. Growing up, things were pretty standard in my family until my mom tragically passed away when I was just 10. A couple of years later, my dad remarried, hoping to bring some normalcy back into our lives, but that's when everything started to spiral. My dad and my new stepmom decided to adopt a girl around my age, named Sarah, which at first seemed like it might be a good thing. However, it quickly turned my world upside down. My dad, who was never the father of the year, shifted whatever affection he had from me to Sarah. It started with small things, like forgetting my school events but remembering hers. But it escalated to a whole new level of hurt the day he actually left me at a mall. Yes, a mall in another state. Luckily, he remembered and came back for me, but the damage was done. To make up for this massive blunder, he took me out on Sarah's birthday, thinking it would smooth things over. It didn't. Instead, it fueled a fiery rivalry between Sarah and me, making it clear that we were not going to be the sisters our parents hoped for. Sarah even had the nerve to tell me that she deserved our dad's love more than I did because she was adopted and needed more attention. Can you believe that? As if the mall incident wasn't enough, similar situations happened twice more. Each time my dad would realize his mistake, apologize profusely, and somehow it would end up making Sarah feel like the victim because it hurt her to see him apologize to me. It was like living in a twisted soap opera, where I was cast as the perpetual villain just for existing. Fast forward to college, I put physical and emotional distance between myself and my family, which seemed to finally wake my dad up to the reality of his neglect. He started trying to make amends, reaching out, attending events, and actually trying to be a father again. Things were looking up, or so I thought. 3 years of tentative reconciliation later, I was planning my wedding for December. It was supposed to be a beautiful closure to a year of rebuilding bridges. Dad was even going to give me away, a moment I'd imagined would solidify our patched-up relationship. But then, during a supposed casual lunch, which he turned into a family ambush by bringing Sarah and my stepmom unannounced, he dropped a bombshell. Sarah, who was suddenly getting married too, had set her date on the exact same day as mine. And here's the kicker. Dad had agreed to be at her wedding instead of mine. He actually had the audacity to ask me to move my wedding to the next year so he could accommodate Sarah's last-minute plans. When I pressed him, asking if he was really choosing her over me, he said yes without skipping a beat. I lost it. I told him not to bother coming to my wedding at all. I couldn't hold back and told Sarah exactly what I thought, that she was enjoying the attention of a dad whose daughter had always been an afterthought. I even threw in that her biological father had made the right decision by staying away, a low blow that I immediately regretted, but the words were already out. The fallout was nuclear. Dad tried to calm things down, but I was done. In the heat of the moment, I disinvited him from the wedding, told Sarah to enjoy her day without worrying about mine, and walked out. But here's where it gets even crazier. As the days passed, word got out about our public blow-up. Sympathy from family friends started pouring in. Not for Sarah, but for me. Several family friends who had watched me grow up sidelined began reaching out, offering support, even sharing their own observations of how unfairly I'd been treated over the years. Then came the revelation. One of Sarah's close friends confided in me that Sarah had been boasting about how she manipulated the situation to make sure our dad would choose her wedding over mine. It was all a game to her, one she felt she had won by securing our dad's undivided attention on what would have been my special day. Fueled by this new information and the community's support, I decided to confront Sarah and my dad one last time. This time, with the backing of not just my feelings, but the testimonies of those who had witnessed the years of neglect and manipulation. I laid it all out, the pain, the manipulation, the lies, and watched as the facade of the happy family crumbled for good. Dad was devastated by the revelations, finally seeing the extent of Sarah's manipulation and the pain it had caused. He tried to make amends, but for me, the damage was done. I was ready to move on, to focus on my wedding and the new chapter in my life without him. So here I am, a few months away from a wedding that will be smaller, but filled with people who truly support and love me. Sarah and my dad are trying to mend their own fractured relationship. But as for me, I'm looking forward to a future where I choose who is part of my life, based on genuine love and respect, not obligation or manipulation. So, am I the idiot? Edit. I booked my wedding date over a year ago. Now for the top comments before the update. What the actual hack is your dad doing? Not only did he completely dismiss your wedding, but he's also once again accommodating his stepdaughter over you. Not to mention, he also knew when your wedding date was also. Why did the step idiot choose your day? There are legit 364 other days. She could choose. I don't understand how your dad keeps falling for your stepsister's power play repeatedly. He really asked you to change your wedding day. That's insane. How convenient that out of all the days in the year, it just so happened that her wedding had to fall on the same date as yours. But just for spite, I booked the venue she wants just for it to sit empty on that day, so she can't use it. I am so sorry for you after reading your story. Your father is not worth your time or anything from you at all. He is stupid for putting her above you all the time. Hopefully you can have a wonderful wedding without him. I got the feeling that if Opie had moved her date somehow, stepsister would have had some issue that postponed her wedding. And the only alternative date would just happen to be Opie's new date. Honey, I can't imagine that the only date the stepdaughter could have picked had to be the one day you picked for your wedding. It sounds like it's going to block your father if he chooses his stepdaughter after this. I'm so sorry that your mom died. I'm a mom, and I'm sending you virtual hugs. I hope your future in-laws will take you in and love you like you deserve. Of course, you are not the idea. Update. The whole showdown with my dad and Sarah was draining, like running a marathon that you didn't train for. It was emotionally exhausting but also strangely liberating. For years, I'd carried this weight of feeling second best, always in the shadow of Sarah's needs and wants. Laying everything out in the open, despite how dramatic it was, felt like shedding a heavy coat I'd been wearing for too long. Afterwards, I spent a lot of time just processing everything, going over conversations, thinking about the things said, and the raw emotions that had spilled out. It was a lot to digest. My friends were my rock during this time. They listened, offered shoulders to cry on, and more than a few glasses of wine were shared as I talked through my feelings. They helped me see that, despite how broken things seemed, I was finally making decisions that prioritized my own well-being. With the family drama somewhat behind me, I redirected my focus towards the wedding planning. This was supposed to be a happy time, and I was determined to reclaim that joy. The wedding planning became a therapeutic process. Each decision, from the flowers to the guest list, felt like a step towards a new beginning, a celebration of love that was all about the people who genuinely cared. The ceremony was everything I could have hoped for and more. It was intimate, with every guest someone who had shown true support through thick and thin. There were tears, but this time they were from laughter and heartfelt moments. The day was a beautiful affirmation that despite the rocky roads, there can be wonderful endings, or rather, new beginnings. The weeks following the wedding were a time of quiet introspection. I thought a lot about family, what it means, how it shapes us, and how sometimes the family we choose is more impactful than the one we're born into. I started journaling, something I hadn't done in years. It helped me unpack my thoughts and feelings, putting things down on paper to make sense of them. I also resumed therapy, diving deeper into understanding the dynamics of my family relationships, my reactions, and how I could build healthier boundaries. It was hard work, often uncomfortable, but incredibly necessary. My therapist helped me explore areas of my life that needed attention, not just the wounds left by family issues, but also my aspirations, fears, and dreams for the future. Reconciliation with my dad is still a work in progress. We've had a few conversations since the wedding, tentative steps towards understanding each other better. He's been trying, in his own way, to make amends. We're not back to normal. Maybe we never will be, but we're learning how to interact in this new reality of ours. As for Sarah, we haven't spoken since that day. Maybe one day we'll find a way to bridge the gap, but for now, I'm giving myself permission to step back and heal without feeling guilty or pressured to mend fences on anyone else's timeline. Life now is about moving forward with a clearer understanding of who I am and what I want. The wedding wasn't just a union with my partner, it was a celebration of coming into my own, surrounded by love and support. I'm excited about what the future holds, planning for new adventures with my spouse, perhaps starting a family of our own, and continuing to grow both personally and professionally. To everyone who's been reading along, your comments and support have been a source of strength and comfort. Sharing this journey has been a cathartic experience, helping me to not only process my experiences, but also to connect with others who might be facing their own challenges. Here's to the future. May it be filled with love, growth, and happiness. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey, for your wise words and kind thoughts. Here's to more updates, hopefully filled with good news and new adventures. Cheers to moving forward, whatever that may look like. Story 2. I live in a super expensive area with my husband where just getting by without a decent paycheck is a pipe dream. I've got a pretty solid job that helps us meet those big city costs. But the dynamics shifted drastically last year when my husband, Jack, switched careers. Jack had been stuck in a job he hated for years, one that paid okay but never made him happy. He always dreamed of breaking into graphic design, which he's passionate about. Finally, after years of late-night classes and building a portfolio, he landed a job in his dream field. We were thrilled. Well, at least until we saw the paycheck. It was half what he used to make, and in this industry, benefits were non-existent. Initially, we thought we could manage. We reshuffled our budget, cutting back where we could, but the strain started to show almost immediately. Things got real when 3 months into his new job, I discovered Jack had used up most of our emergency savings to buy new software and equipment for his freelancing gigs without telling me. This hit me hard because we had agreed to discuss any big spending given our new financial constraints. Feeling the pinch, I sat Jack down and laid it all out. I told him he might need to rethink this career switch, at least until we were more financially stable. He was devastated, understandably so since he'd finally found work he loved. But reality is harsh, and our bank statements don't lie. Jack proposed getting a part-time job to supplement his income, or even moving to a cheaper area to ease the financial pressure. The part-time job idea seemed like a drop in the ocean of our expenses, and moving away meant I'd face a killer commute and less family time, which was a deal-breaker for me. His next suggestion floored me. He casually mentioned that his parents could chip in financially to help us out. This was shocking because Jack has always been proud of his independence, and accepting money from his parents would be a last resort. Plus, it felt like a temporary bandage on a gaping wound, not a sustainable solution. As we navigated this financial minefield, personal tensions began to rise. Jack felt I wasn't supporting his dreams, while I felt increasingly like his financial caretaker rather than his partner. The situation escalated when, during a rare dinner out to try and reconnect amidst our growing stresses, Jack admitted he had been hiding more debts from me. Credit card bills racked up from networking events and pricey design workshops meant to boost his freelance career. This revelation was a breaking point. I felt betrayed. Trust, once the cornerstone of our relationship, was crumbling. We argued right there in the restaurant, voices raised, a spectacle for other diners. It was embarrassing and heartbreaking. In a desperate attempt to salvage his career without losing our financial security, Jack then made a drastic proposal. He suggested he could move back in with his parents for 6 months to a year. This would reduce our expenses and allow him to build up his freelance income without the pressure of immediate bills. But this meant living apart, a strain on any marriage, especially one already under stress. I was torn. On one hand, this could be the solution we needed to keep his dream alive, without sinking ourselves into deeper financial trouble. On the other hand, the thought of living separately felt like a step backward in our relationship, a semi-separation that neither of us had signed up for. As we debated this, the emotional toll became evident. Jack, feeling isolated in his pursuit of a meaningful career, started to withdraw. Conversations about future plans turned into arguments about money and priorities. We were stuck, and every solution seemed to come with its own set of massive compromises. Now, I'm trying to figure out how to balance supporting the person I love with protecting our financial future. It's a tightrope walk between love and practicality, and every step feels fraught with potential for a fall. Now for the top comments. So he worked for years helping to pay off your student loans in a job he hated. And whilst he was slaving away at a job he didn't like, you were okay, but as soon as the boot was on the other foot, it's a problem. How many years did he work at a job that he hated while he carried the burden of the finance so you could pay off your student loans? You are the idiot. Hello. Well, the hypocrisy, right? He worked a job he hated and paid the majority of that cost because Princess Selfish had student loans. Now that he's doing something he likes and she's the main breadwinner, she sits him down and tells him he has to quit his dream job. She does all of this when they're not even struggling. I feel like I'm carrying him the way he carried your student loan riddle. But for years, what have you tried to do yourself? Just because you make more money and work long hours doesn't mean the onus is on him to pull his weight. It doesn't sound to me like he's being a lazy freeloader to me. He worked a job that made him miserable to help get your student loan debt paid off. Now he's finally happy. It sounds like you're the one who wants to live in an expensive way in order to keep your current job and be near your family. You want your husband to leave the job he loves and return to a job you hate so you can keep living in your fancy house. Get a divorce for his sake. Story 3. So, the stage was set for a fun night out with friends at a local brewery, a gathering spot that promised good food, great drinks, and some much-needed catching up. My friend Mike, who isn't the main organizer usually but took the reins this time, had made a reservation. My wife and I, eager for a relaxing evening, were the first to arrive. To our surprise, we found out that Mike had booked an outdoor table. Given the cooler evening and a general preference for a more cozy setting, I asked the staff if moving indoors was possible. They were super accommodating, setting up a table for us inside without any fuss. As other friends began to trickle in, everyone seemed pleased with the indoor setup, comfy chairs, nice ambiance, and no chilly breezes. We ordered our first round of drinks, laughing and chatting away, when Mike finally made his appearance. And here's where things started to get weird. Mike walked in, noticeably alone without his wife, and looked genuinely confused and a bit annoyed to find us all indoors. He immediately questioned the change, and upon learning of our collective decision, revealed that he'd brought his 3 dogs along, assuming we'd all be sitting outside at the pet-friendly table he'd reserved. The mood shifted instantly. Mike explained that not only had he planned for an outdoor dog-friendly evening, but another friend, Sarah, had also brought her dog, anticipating a similar setup. I tried to keep things light, apologizing for the misunderstanding and explaining my preference for the comfort of being indoors. However, Mike seemed increasingly upset, insisting the dogs were part of his plan for a laid-back night. Feeling a bit cornered and wanting to avoid a bigger issue, I suggested maybe we could compromise. That's when the unexpected happened. From the corner of my eye, I saw one of Mike's dogs, which he had tied up just outside the indoor seating area, start to get agitated and bark loudly. The barking caught the attention of another patron's dog, leading to a noisy commotion that had staff and guests turning their heads. Attempting to calm the situation, Mike stepped outside to settle his dogs down. Meanwhile, the staff, concerned about the disturbance, approached us to discuss the possibility of either fully moving outside as originally booked or ensuring the dogs could be calmed if we chose to stay indoors. Feeling the night slipping into chaos, some of our friends suggested shifting back outside to stick to the original plan and appease Mike. Half of the group started gathering their things to move outdoors, while the other half, myself included, preferred to stay inside. Just as we were sorting this out, another shocking twist. Sarah's dog slipped its leash and darted towards the brewery's kitchen, causing a minor uproar as staff rushed to intercept the dog before it could burst into the food prep area. This incident sparked a heated debate among our group. Some blamed Mike for not communicating his plans clearly, while others felt that those of us who opted to stay inside were being inflexible. Mike, now dealing with his unruly dogs and facing criticism, became defensive, arguing that the evening was ruined by our unwillingness to stick to his original plan. The night ended with the group split across 2 tables, one indoors and one out, with the jovial mood replaced by an awkward tension. Mike's frustration was palpable, and in a surprising move, he apologized for the misunderstanding but suggested that perhaps next time planning should be left to someone else. Feeling the weight of the night's failures, I couldn't help but reflect on how a simple evening out had spiraled into a series of unexpected and unfortunate events. Conversations were had, apologies made, but the sense that our group dynamic had shifted was undeniable. In the aftermath, Mike reached out individually to apologize for the chaos, admitting that his expectations for a casual dog-friendly evening were perhaps not well thought out given the group's diverse preferences. As for me, the incident served as a stark reminder of how crucial clear communication is, especially when plans involve more than just deciding on a time and place to meet. So, was I too hasty in my decision to change the venue without consulting everyone, especially Mike? Or was the night doomed from the start by a series of miscommunications and unmet expectations? Either way, it was a dinner that none of us would forget anytime soon. Am I the idiot? Edit. The person who made the reservation volunteered. He did not plan the outing. It was more like a group chat. Hey, anyone want to do this? People were interested. A place was chosen, and the guy who broke the dogs volunteered to make the reservation. Now for the top comments. You are the idiot simply for moving it indoors without asking anyone first light. Not even one person. A couple of quick calls to ask what everyone preferred. If there was a specific reason for being outside would have been the better thing to do, rather than decide for everyone without consulting first. Then you saw inside pouting and wanting to be right, forcing everyone else to choose between what is now 2 groups and creating an awkward environment on what was supposed to be a nice evening out. Hope he kind of rubs me the wrong way. As he said, they sat inside to pounce, forcing a split in the group in the way they said some people went outside to be nice, as if no one could possibly prefer sitting outside with the other people and dogs. Just feels a little main character-ish. Well, I don't know. I love dogs. I own an enormous black lab that is the best dog. However, I don't feel the pressing need to take my dog everywhere I go. The dog is fine at home, enjoying the AC and shedding on my couch. Speaking of AC, I don't know about everyone else, but it has been insanely hot here. No way in heck I'd sit outside sweating my tatas off because some guy couldn't stand to be away from his dog for an hour. I think making reservations to specifically accommodate my own whims is idiot. And the guy who coordinated with another person about bringing his dog to, but couldn't be bothered to let the rest of the group know that it was going to be a dinner with the side of dog hair and sweat. He brought 3 dogs. Screw anyone who does that. Dogs, cats, babies, children, plus one's friends, relatives, in-laws, etc. Are uninvited guests unless agreed to in advance by the host or agreed to by the whole group. If it's a group event, regardless of who organizes the group event, the same applies to locations and events. So, no, the idiot. I hate when people impose their dogs on others like that. Story 4. So I nearly adult male dad left my mom when I was a young teen to be with his wife, the woman he was cheating on my mom with. That betrayal not only shattered our family, but also started a chain of events that made my teenage years pretty rocky. Despite his actions, my dad wanted to maintain a relationship with me, hoping I wouldn't think too badly of him. But honestly, that was a tall order. The custody arrangement was pretty standard. Judges around here stick to a strict 50-50th custody until the kid is old enough to voice a strong preference. My mom, who worked hard but never earned as much as my dad, struggled financially because the 50-50th custody arrangement meant no child support was required, even though there was a clear income disparity. A few years into this setup, as I neared adulthood, my dad, perhaps feeling some guilt or maybe just wanting to mend fences, approached me. He was desperate to prove he could still be a good father and offered to do anything to make up for his past mistakes. I saw an opportunity, not just for me but for my mom, who had been through so much. I told him if he really wanted to make things right, he could start by financially supporting my mom. Surprisingly, he agreed and started paying what we decided to call child support, which significantly eased my mom's financial burden and allowed her to pursue further education to better her career prospects. This arrangement seemed to work fine until the financial strain began to show at my dad's new household. He had remarried, and his new wife was not exactly thrilled about the money going to my mom. She especially didn't like it when financial pressures at home started to mount. My dad and his new wife had a baby, adding to their expenses, and her kids from a previous relationship were involved in numerous expensive activities. As if the financial drama wasn't enough, the emotional strain hit a breaking point recently at a family lunch that was supposed to be a simple catch-up. Unbeknownst to me, it turned into a showdown of familial obligations and loyalties. During the lunch, which already had an undertone of tension, my dad's wife dropped a bombshell. Due to their tightened budget, they had to cut back on her kids' activities. She bluntly told me that if my dad didn't have to support my mom, her kids wouldn't have to give up their extracurriculars. This confrontation escalated quickly, with accusations flying. She argued that my insistence on my dad supporting my mom was selfish, overlooking the needs of her children and their new baby. I retorted that her family's lifestyle adjustments weren't my concern, and my mom's well-being was non-negotiable, especially given the sacrifices she had made over the years. The argument took an even more shocking turn when she suggested that my mom should find another way to support herself, and that I was old enough to start contributing financially instead of relying on my dad. This suggestion was not only offensive, but also showed a clear disregard for the emotional and financial dynamics set by my dad's previous decisions. Her comment struck a nerve, and in the heat of the moment, I reminded her that her kids were not my responsibility, and that my dad had obligations to his first family, me and my mom, that didn't just disappear because he started a new one. The clash ended with her calling me ungrateful and cold-hearted, suggesting that I was ruining my chances of having any relationship with my half-sibling, the baby. Post-lunch, the fallout was massive. My dad tried to play peacemaker but ended up being pulled in 2 directions. He was stuck between his obligation to support my mom and his new family's demands. Meanwhile, the family dynamics continued to deteriorate, with resentments brewing on all sides. As things stand, the relationship between me and my dad's new family is more strained than ever. I'm left navigating these troubled waters, trying to uphold my principles while dealing with the backlash from all sides. It's a mess, and it's painful, but I'm determined to stand by my mom and ensure that her sacrifices are recognized, not penalized. Am I the idiot? Now for the top comments. What the heck did she expect sleeping with a married man? She can get a second job if money is a problem. Good to know your dad is only 50% sleazebag, not 100%. Regardless, it's absolutely not your problem. I hope your mom is doing well now, every time she brings it up. Reminded that it was her choice to sleep with a married man. She literally messed around and found out she's a goddamn hypocrite. I expect you to have empathy for me and mine. Yeah, like you had empathy for the man's wife and child whom you slept with? Absolutely not. The idea. Out of curiosity, how long will daddy continue paying until you're 18 or until mom graduates? For me, it's until a mom graduates is what I feel he owes. I can't technically make him pay that long, though. Then I'll be in a much better place after dad screwed her over so badly. It's the least he can do. And the least I expect. The stepmom actually said her kids needed therapy to help them adjust to such big changes. This made me laugh because they cut 2 activities out of a long list. Story 5. So I'm 30 and my husband is 33. We've been married for 3 years and have a little baby boy. Now there's something you gotta know about my mother-in-law. She's super tough to deal with and doesn't really get the whole boundaries thing. A few years back, she was really out of line, calling me names and saying I wasn't good enough for her son, which obviously didn't sit well with me. I had a serious talk with my husband about it, and he actually stepped up and talked to her. Things got a bit better after that. She's still not my favorite person, but I've been trying to keep the peace. Choosing my battles wisely. This past weekend, there was a wedding we all went to, including my in-laws. Here's where it gets tricky. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law decided they didn't want to cough up cash for a hotel near the wedding venue because it was pricey. Instead, they asked my husband if they could crash at our place while we stayed at the wedding hotel. Now, my husband didn't even check with me before saying yes to them, which was kind of a bummer, but I figured I'd let it slide because my sister sometimes stays at our house too. Still, a heads up would have been nice. So, we head off to the wedding, and when we get back to our house the next day, there they were, just chilling in our place. They stayed in the guest bedroom, which I had spent ages cleaning and prepping for them. No small feat with a baby around. But here's the kicker. I found out that not only had my sister-in-law slept in my bed, but also, the next morning, my mother-in-law had joined her there. I was mortified. My bedroom was a mess. I mean, it's my private space, and I hadn't cleaned it up for guests because, well, who would think anyone would go in there? It felt like a huge invasion of privacy. They crossed a major line by snooping around and then actually sleeping in my bed. And honestly, those sheets were definitely not guest-ready. When I confronted my husband, hoping he'd back me up, he actually defended them. He said he'd told them it was okay to use our bed and thought I wouldn't mind. He even compared it to the time my sister and I had to share my bed because we ran out of sleeping space, which was totally different. This time, it felt like my personal space was just taken over without my consent. I was so upset, I couldn't even talk to him. And now he's mad at me, saying I embarrassed him in front of his family by making a big deal out of it. He doesn't get why I'm so upset about them using our bed and thinks I'm overreacting. So here I am feeling super disrespected in my own home. Not just by my in-laws, but now by my husband too. It's like, where do I even go from here? How do I make it clear that what happened was not okay and that my feelings are valid? It's a mess, and I'm just trying to figure out how to deal with all this drama while keeping the peace, or figuring out if that's even possible now. Now for the top comments. Yeah, a huge no to anyone sleeping in your bed without a conversation. And both sides agree. It's weird your family would still choose to sleep in your room knowing it wasn't prepared for a guest like the other room as well, but more, right? I guess they were given permission. The main issue comes down to your husband giving them the option without talking to you first. It's not okay for sure. Speak to him and place hard boundaries. If your husband will not step up and keep disrespecting your boundaries, maybe it's time to think about you stepping out or bringing this to him. I wouldn't want my child to be raised in an environment where their own father and paternal side disrespect the mother and don't see anything wrong while doing so. Not the issue yet, but get marriage counseling ASAP,